The stars above Earth once shone bright and free, but that light did not last forever. The day came when the sky itself split apart and alien warships entered the orbit of humanity's homeworld. They came not with peace, not with words, but with fire. Their weapons tore through Earth's defenses in a single night. The proud fleets of humanity shattered like glass before the storm. The ground shook as cities turned to ash. The oceans boiled where enemy fire struck, and the world cried out in terror. The aliens were not explorers. They were conquerors. They had watched Earth from afar, waiting for the right moment. When humanity grew strong enough to reach the stars but not strong enough to defend them, the invaders struck. They had no mercy. They saw Earth as their prize, the jewel of the galaxy, rich with resources, water, and life. Unlike other worlds, Earth was perfect, and the aliens wanted it for themselves. At first, humanity fought with desperate courage. Their ships rose from the surface, their armies stood in defiance. Their weapons roared against the night sky. For a moment, it seemed the invaders would bleed, but their technology was too advanced, their numbers too overwhelming. One human ship was crushed for every alien. Vessel scratched, one human city burned for every alien soldier fallen. Humanity was brave, but bravery was not enough. The fall did not come in weeks. It came in days. Entire nations surrendered. Others resisted until nothing remained. Whole armies vanished under alien fire. The invaders destroyed monuments, erased histories, and enslaved survivors. Those who resisted were hunted like animals. Those who begged were chained. Earth became silent, only the alien banners flying over broken ruins. The world that once belonged to mankind was now lost. The conquerors reshaped Earth. They built vast cities of steel over the ruins of human capitals. They carved symbols of their empire into mountains and rivers. They tore down human temples and raised statues of their own lords. The memory of mankind was wiped away piece by piece. To them, humanity was finished, erased like dust scattered on the wind. But not all humans were destroyed. Some fled into the stars. Hidden colonies rose far away beyond the eyes of the conquerors. Refugees gathered in secret stations, building new lives in silence. They carried the memory of Earth like fire in their hearts. They told their children of blue oceans, green forests, and skies filled with birds. They swore one day they would return. But for now they were too weak and the enemy was too strong. So they waited. On Earth itself, the survivors lived under chains. Their children were forced to speak alien tongues. Their culture erased. Their stories forbidden. Yet even in silence, whispers remained. Some told tales of hidden humans in the stars preparing to return. Others spoke of revenge that would one day fall like fire. The conquerors laughed at such stories. To them, humanity was broken and forgotten. They believed the world belonged to them forever. Centuries passed, then millennia. 3,000 years rolled across the galaxy. The aliens grew arrogant. They believed Earth was theirs by right. Their children and grandchildren walked freely across soil that once belonged to humans. They built towers to the sky, drank from rivers once sacred to mankind. They never expected the ghosts of humanity to endure. But in the cold darkness far away, humanity still lived. Generations of humans trained in exile. They learned patience. They learned strength. They turned their pain into steel. Their fleets grew in hidden yards, their weapons forged in secret. Their leaders passed down one vow from parent to child. Earth will be ours again. For 3,000 years this vow burned quietly in their hearts. For 3,000 years they remembered the fall. For 3,000 years they prepared for the day of return. The galaxy forgot humanity, but humanity did not forget Earth. The fall of Earth was more than conquest. It was the beginning of something the aliens never understood. The day they stole Earth was the day they sealed their own fate. For every child in exile carried the memory. For every soldier born among the stars carried the fire. For every ship built in silence carried the promise humanity had been broken once but never again. And so the story of the fall became legend told in whispers across hidden colonies. The tale of the day Earth burned, The tale of the day aliens thought they had destroyed mankind. But legends have power. Legends become weapons. And this legend waited for the moment when ghosts would rise from the dark. Earth was silent, but humanity was not. Humanity endured. Humanity remembered. Humanity sharpened itself in the shadows. And though the conquerors ruled for 3,000 years, they never saw the storm gathering at the edge of the galaxy. The fall of Earth was not the end. It was the beginning of vengeance. For 3,000 years, Earth no longer belonged to humanity. The aliens who conquered it claimed themselves as its true masters. They built vast cities of metal and light that stretched across the continents, towers that reached the clouds and machines that reshaped the land. Rivers were redirected mountains, hollowed oceans carved for their needs. Earth was their jewel, their pride, their paradise. They lived as rulers, without fear, never once imagining the ghosts of humanity still existed beyond the stars. They taught their children that humans had been weak, unworthy of such a perfect world. They told stories of the day Earth fell, stories where humanity broke easily under alien power and was erased from history. They erased human names from maps. They destroyed human monuments and burned books that spoke of the old world. The Earth they walked upon was alien now. Its forests cut its skies filled with machines. Its culture belonged to the conquerors alone. The survivors who lived under alien rule were kept in chains. They were treated as animals, forbidden to speak their own tongue, forbidden to remember the world they once owned. Entire generations were born into slavery, knowing nothing of freedom. Yet deep inside their blood, the memory of Earth remained. They worked in alien fields. They labored in alien cities, but when they looked to the stars, they felt something stir inside them. The chains were heavy, but the fire was not gone. Far away, hidden beyond the reach of the Empire, humanity endured. Exile had not killed them. In secret, colonies carved into asteroids and remote planets, they lived and grew. For centuries they were weak, surviving only on fragments of what they could build. But time became their weapon. Generation after generation, they worked in silence. Each new child was raised not to forget Earth, but to dream of it. They memorized its oceans, its skies, its green forests, even though they had never seen them. They carried those images like weapons, waiting for the day to strike. The aliens laughed at the very idea that humans might survive in the dark. They called them ghosts and shadows, myths told by frightened slaves. To the rulers, humanity was finished, a chapter long closed. But legends do not die so easily. In hidden places, humanity was not only surviving, they were preparing. They studied. They built. They learned to master weapons greater than their conquerors. They learned patience while the aliens grew arrogant. They turned every scar into steel, every memory into fire. The aliens spread across the galaxy, confident that Earth was secure in their hands. They built an empire of power, ruling over other species, crushing resistance wherever it rose. But while they ruled openly, humanity moved in silence. Their fleets were built, not in light, but in shadow. Their warriors trained not for today, but for centuries ahead. Every hidden base became a forge, every hidden station, a fortress. They knew they could not rush revenge. They had to wait until the day they could return and never fall again. And so the arrogance of the conquerors grew. For them, Earth was no longer a stolen world. It was their home now. Their children played under skies once blue. Their songs echoed across valleys once filled with human voices. They looked upon Earth as theirs, forever. But their empire was blind to the truth. They had inherited a world but not its spirit. The soil still remembered its first children. The ocean still carried their memory. The stars still waited for their return. Whispers began to spread in the darkest corners of the galaxy. Rumors of fleets no one had seen, but many had feared rumors of weapons forged in silence. Rumors of a people thought extinct who had sworn never to forget. To some, these were only stories to frighten children. To others, they were warnings of a storm yet to come. The rulers of Earth ignored them. They believed themselves untouchable. They believed humanity was gone forever. But in the hearts of exiled humans, the vow remained clear. One day they would return. One day they would reclaim the soil where their ancestors walked. One day the alien towers would fall just as human cities once fell. The conquerors thought themselves masters, but they were only keepers of a stolen throne. Humanity had not forgotten, and they had not forgiven. 3,000 years made the empire lazy while humanity grew sharper. The aliens feasted on comfort and power, while humans endured hunger and struggle. The aliens believed themselves eternal, while humans prepared for a single moment. A return not in silence, not in weakness, but in fire. Humanity was patient, but patience was not mercy. Patience was the blade they would one day unsheathe. And so the conquerors lived blind to the truth. They celebrated their rule. They looked upon Earth as theirs. They laughed at the idea of ghosts. But the ghosts were real. They walked in exile, waiting in the shadows. And when the day came, they would no longer be ghosts. They would be the storm that swept the masters away. 3,000 years had passed since Earth had fallen. The aliens who ruled it no longer thought of conquest. They thought of permanence. They believed their empire, eternal. Their banners covered every city. Their language filled every book, and their power stretched across the stars. To them, humanity was a myth, a broken race erased by time. Nothing more than shadows fading into silence. But silence does not last forever. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, something stirred. It began with whispers. Small rumors of ships moving where no Empire fleet patrolled. Merchant convoys vanished without explanation. Outposts reported ghost signals on their scanners. Then came the message, the first true sign that the forgotten race had not died. A signal, caught by alien receivers across distant systems. It was short, simple, and sharp. Only 4 words burned into their channels. "We are coming home." At first they dismissed it as a trick. Perhaps pirates seeking to frighten traders. Perhaps rebels using old codes. But when the words repeated again and again across dozens of systems, the Empire began to take notice. The tone of the message was unmistakable. It carried weight. It carried anger. It carried the sound of a vow kept for millennia. The rulers of Earth began to feel something they had not felt in centuries. Fear councils gathered in panic. They studied the message, searching for its origin. They found fragments scattered across the void, but no single point could be traced. It was as if the signal had come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The ghosts were speaking, but they remained hidden. The Empire's admirals mocked the fear. They said no ancient race could survive this long. They said the myths of humanity were nothing more than lies, but in their hearts they doubted. For the words were too strong, too precise, too dangerous to ignore. The slaves on Earth heard the whispers too. Though the Empire tried to silence the news, it spread through secret voices, through hidden networks. They heard the words, "We are coming home," and their hearts burned brighter. For generations they had been beaten into silence. But now the silence cracked. Their children spoke the words in secret. Their elders wept at the sound. The cry was not just a threat. It was hope. Soon fleets of the Empire began to vanish. Whole squadrons disappeared in the dark without leaving wreckage. Stations went silent. Traders spoke of shadows moving between stars, of weapons that struck without warning and left no survivors. The rulers of Earth dismissed them at first, but when one of their great warships was found drifting empty, scarred with weapons unknown, they could no longer laugh. The ghosts were real. The humans had endured, hidden far beyond. The Empire's gaze humanity had waited. They had forged ships larger than the old empires had ever seen. They had built weapons designed not for defense but for vengeance. Their fleets moved like storms unseen until they chose to strike. They tested, the Empire slowly, carefully taking only small pieces, erasing patrols, sending messages. Each act was not random. Each act was a warning. They wanted the rulers to know. They wanted them to remember the fall of Earth. And they wanted them to feel the weight of 3,000 years of anger. The Empire tried to respond. They sent fleets to the dark edges of space hoping to crush the shadows, but every time they arrived, they found nothing. Only empty space, only silence. And then, as they turned to leave, half their ships would vanish, their engines cut by weapons they had never faced. Their survivors carried one message back. The ghosts have returned, on Earth itself. The alien lords grew restless. They looked to the skies, fearful for the first time. They ordered new defenses built. They strengthened orbital fleets, they filled the atmosphere with weapons, but deep inside they knew no fortress could last forever. If the ghosts had survived this long, then they had not come to ask for peace. They had come for revenge in the hidden colonies humanity watched with cold patience. They knew the Empire feared them now, but fear was not enough. They wanted more. They wanted the rulers to feel the same terror humanity had felt when the skies above Earth first burned. They wanted them to see death falling from the stars. They wanted them to understand that every cry, every scar, every lost child of Earth still lived within the fire of those who had returned. The signal in the dark was only the beginning. It was a promise spoken through the void, a vow repeated in every whisper across the galaxy. Humanity had endured. Humanity had grown. Humanity had become the storm. And soon, very soon, the storm would break upon Earth itself. The day the sky above Earth split open again was the day history turned. For 3,000 years, the alien rulers had walked across human soil without fear. They had built their towers, their temples, their machines. They had told themselves humanity was gone, erased, buried in the ashes of history. But when the storm came, they learned the truth. Humanity had not died. Humanity had been waiting. It began with silence. A still night, where alien ships patrolled the skies above Earth, confident as always. Then the silence broke. A tear opened in the heavens, a ripple of light as if the stars themselves had been cut apart. From that wound in the void came shadows, massive shapes outlined by fire. Human ships emerged one after another, colossal vessels, larger than any alien fleet had ever imagined. Their hulls burned with the light of vengeance, their guns glowing like suns. The first alien defenders rose to meet them. Hundreds of warships launched into orbit, their weapons locking on targets. They fired beams of energy across the sky, burning bright trails that lit the night. But the human dreadnoughts did not break. Their shields flared, their armor held, and then they answered. The soundless roar of railguns ripped through the void, missiles streaked like falling stars. Plasma cannons unleashed torrents of white fire. Entire enemy squadrons shattered in minutes. The rulers of Earth, who had crushed humanity so easily 3,000 years ago, now faced something they could not stop on the ground. The enslaved people of Earth looked up at the sky. They had never seen human warships before. To them, the stories of mankind's power were only myths whispered in the dark. Yet now those myths became real. They saw alien fleets burning. They saw human ships descend with fire in their wake. They fell to their knees in awe. Some wept, some screamed, but all felt the same truth. The rightful masters of Earth had returned. The alien lords sent desperate calls across the galaxy for aid, but no empire answered. Some were too far, some were too afraid, and some had waited for this moment, hoping to see the proud rulers broken. The aliens of Earth stood alone, and they knew it. The ghosts they once mocked had come home in flesh and fire, human. Commanders gave no speeches. Their actions spoke for them. Every volley, every strike carried the weight of centuries of exile. They did not come to bargain. They did not come to share Earth. They came to take it back. The first human soldiers set foot on the planet's surface, their armor dark, their weapons fierce. They moved with precision, cutting through defenses that had stood for thousands of years. The aliens fought with desperation, but desperation could not match vengeance. Across Earth, the alien cities burned, human forces advanced through streets that had never known their footsteps. Entire towers crumbled under bombardment. Statues of alien lords fell into the dust, where once human monuments had stood. The soil drank fire and smoke. But for the first time in 3,000 years, it was for humanity, not against it. The conquerors were now the conquered. The enslaved humans hidden in alien cities rose when they saw the fleets above. They broke chains. They seized weapons. They fought alongside their returning kin. For generations they had been told they were nothing. They had been told humanity was gone. But now, with fire above and warriors at their side, they shouted one word in defiance. Home. The alien rulers tried. One last stand. They gathered their greatest fleets around Earth. Massive armadas of black steel bristling with weapons. They hoped to crush humanity's return in one strike. But the battle was already lost. Human dreadnoughts cut through them with fury. Railguns tore holes through their cruisers. Plasma beams melted their armor. Missiles split them apart. Fire covered the skies until day and night became the same red glow. When the last alien ship fell, silence returned once more. But this silence was different. It was not the silence of defeat. It was the silence of victory. Humanity stood again on their homeworld. For 3,000 years they had waited. For 3,000 years they had prepared. Now they had returned, and nothing could take Earth from them again. The commanders of the human fleet stood in silence as their ships orbited the reclaimed world. They looked down upon the soil their ancestors had lost. They did not cheer. They did not boast. Their vengeance was not loud. It was quiet, heavy, and final. The vow had been fulfilled. The ghosts had come home, and they were ghosts no longer. The galaxy trembled at the sight. News spread faster than light. Humanity had returned, not as slaves, not as victims, but as Deathworlders, carrying the fire of vengeance. Empires that once mocked them now whispered in fear. If humans could take back Earth after 3,000 years, what else were they capable of? The return was not only a victory, it was a warning. The night sky above. Earth burned with the wreckage of the fallen and the light of human ships standing guard. Humanity had come home. Humanity had taken back what was theirs, and humanity would never again be forgotten. When the fires of battle faded, Earth was silent again, but the silence was not the silence of defeat. It was the silence of victory. For the first time in 3,000 years, the soil of humanity's home was free of alien rule. The broken towers of the conquerors lay in ruins, their banners torn from the skies. The air was thick with smoke, but beneath the smoke the land breathed again. The world had suffered for millennia, yet it endured just as its children had endured. Humanity had come home across the planet. Enslaved humans walked free. Their chains broken, their voices lifted in cries of joy. For generations they had lived in darkness, believing their people scattered, believing the stars had abandoned them. But now they saw the truth. They saw fleets of steel hanging in the skies. They saw warriors armored in black standing with weapons that burned brighter than suns. They saw their kind returned not as shadows, but as conquerors reclaiming what was theirs. Their tears were not only for sorrow, they were for pride. The alien lords who had ruled Earth for centuries were dragged from their palaces. Their power was shattered, their arrogance broken. They begged for mercy, the same mercy they had never given to humans, but humanity had not returned to show kindness. They had returned to avenge the fall. Their judgment was swift, their wrath unstoppable. The rulers who had called Earth their jewel learned in their final moments that they had only been keepers of stolen soil. Now the true owners had returned across the galaxy. The news spread faster than fleets could travel. Worlds trembled when they heard the words, "Humanity has returned." Stories carried whispers of alien fleets burning, of dreadnoughts split apart, of armies crushed in days. Some called humans liberators, saviors who brought justice against tyranny. Others called them monsters who returned only to bring destruction. But whether they spoke with fear or hope, one truth remained. All now knew that the Deathworlders had risen again. In hidden halls of power, alien leaders gathered. They debated in whispers. What would humans do now? Would they stop at Earth? Would they rest after vengeance, or would they march further and take revenge upon every empire that once ignored their suffering? No one knew, and that was what frightened them most. For if humanity could endure 3,000 years of exile and return stronger than before, then there was nothing they could not do. Human commanders stood over their reclaimed world in silence. Their ships circled the planet like guardians, their weapons still hot from battle. They did not cheer. They did not boast. They remembered the price of 3,000 years of waiting. They remembered the lives, lost in exile, the generations who had died never setting foot on their homeworld. They remembered the pain that had forged them into what they now were, Deathworlders carrying the scars of millennia. Their vengeance was not only for themselves, it was for every ancestor who had fallen when Earth was taken. On the ground, survivors of the hidden colonies met those who had lived under alien chains. They embraced one another as one people, divided no longer. Their stories were different, yet their hearts the same. They swore never again to be broken, never again to be erased. They rebuilt fires in the ruins. They raised their flag once more in the soil where it had fallen long ago. It was not just a return. It was a rebirth. The ruins of alien cities became reminders, monuments to arrogance destroyed by fury. The soil was stained with fire, but within it new seeds would grow. Humanity had lost Earth once, but they would never lose it again. The vow that carried them through centuries was complete, yet another vow now replaced it. They would defend their world not just with fire, but with the fury of a people who had learned patience and pain like no other. The galaxy watched in silence. Empires shifted their fleets nervously, fearing the day human ships might appear at their borders. Some whispered of alliances, some whispered of war. All whispered of fear. For the story of Earth's return was no longer just about one world. It was about a species that could not be erased. A species that could vanish into exile for thousands of years and still come back stronger. A species that would always rise when struck down. Humanity was no longer seen as weak. Humanity was a warning. In the darkness of space, the human fleets stood ready, their guns silent but their presence heavy. Every admiral, every soldier, every survivor knew the truth. They had come back for Earth, and they had taken it back, but Earth was only the beginning. The galaxy would now learn what it meant when Deathworlders carried not only memory but vengeance. And so the revenge of humanity was not finished, it had only begun. For 3,000 years they had been ghosts. Now they were storms, and storms do not rest.